you're probably wondering what I'm doing up here. I mean, I'm not a doctor or a physicist. I'm not an engineer. And I won't have a college degree for another 2 months. So what could this 22-year-old kid have to say that you don't already know? Well, I guess all I'll have to talk about then are my beliefs. But I believe in a lot of things. I believe in coincidence and fitness and having a chocolate chip cookie after a good workout. I believe in lust at first sight and falling in love in 3 days. I believe my friend Hanson Lee is really bad at Smash Brothers. I don't believe anything's predetermined or that I'm here to fulfill some meaningful purpose. But more than anything else, I don't believe everything's going to be okay. And I understand how bad that might sound, but I hope you understand that I'm not a pessimistic person, and this isn't a pessimistic mentality. You see, I'm not saying I believe everything won't be okay. I just don't believe everything will be. And before I dive into why this is so important, it's important for me to highlight what happened in my life to make me think this way. So I'm going to begin this talk with a story, and it's pretty lengthy, so I hope you're comfortable. This starts August 3rd, 2008, and I'm 16 years old. I'm at the park across the street playing basketball against my uncle. We're playing 21, I'm up 19 to 18. I can feel the wind. I dribble left, I dribble right. I step back, shoot the fade, and he stuffs it. He takes it back behind the line, shoots the rock, hits the three, beats me 21-19. I think he won 4 games in a row and top 4 games a horse. I'm like super bad at basketball. Anyway, we walk home, and I remember walking up the driveway, and I see our minivan backing out. And in the middle row, I see my sister, and I can see her with her arms around her waist and her head between her knees. And I look over, and I see my Uncle Eddie. I'm like, what's going on? She just had a stomachache. Eddie says, she couldn't feel the left side of her body. Your mom and Catherine are taking her to the hospital. Everything's going to be fine. Of course it will. It's just a stomachache. And she's only 17 anyway. So, I go inside and I clean up. And after I'm done, I watch my brother play video games with Eddie and Catherine's foster kids for about half an hour. Eventually the phone rings, and I pick up at the same time as my dad. And so, I hit the mute button, so no one knows I'm on the line. And after a couple seconds, I hear my mom, and she's crying. And eventually she's able to mutter out the words that she had a heart attack. So, I hang up, and I'm like, no, that's impossible. She's 17, there's probably a misdiagnosis. Everything's gonna be fine. So, I jog up the stairs, and as I get halfway up the stairs, I see my dad fly by me. So, I jog a little faster. I get to the kitchen, I look out the window, and I can see my dad pull out of the driveway faster than I've ever seen in my life. And again, I look over, and there's Eddie. So, what's going on? Your dad's gonna go to the hospital with your mom. You should get ready. We're gonna head out soon, too. So, I go and I put on some pants, and as we're getting ready to leave, my mom calls and asks me to bring her her red coat and a carton of cigarettes. But that doesn't make any sense either, because Dad quit smoking 2 years ago. So, I find a red coat, and in the corner of the closet, I also find the cigarettes. Anyway, we rush to the hospital, and we get to the 2nd floor of the cardiovascular department. And I remember getting into the waiting room, and I see my mom and Catherine and 2 aunts from my dad's side. All right, no big deal. So about an hour passes by, and over the course of the hour, we're pressing the nurses. What's going on? Can we get an update? Can we see her? And every time it's just, no, we're just running tests. We don't know what's going on. We can't give you any information. And we can't let anyone see her right now. So after an hour, finally the nurses say, we have to move her to the 4th floor of the ICU. No one can see her, but we can have one person go with her, which, of course, was my mom. So now we're sitting in the waiting room in the ICU, and we're here for about 3 hours. And the only thing that we learn over this 3 hours is 2/3 of her heart had been damaged. And of course, over the 3 hours, family are coming and going, and friends are coming and going. And I remember a conversation I had with my friend Vincent. He said, it's impossible. The human heart can't function on 2/3. And when I heard this, I was like, oh, great. Well, she's kicking it, so it's a good thing we got her to the hospital. We're here just in time. And eventually, after those 3 hours, the nurses finally say, we're going to allow visitors. So, I stand up, and my mom tells me to sit down because the elders have to go first. So, the adults go first. And after an hour, they finally let me in. So I go in with my brother and 2 of my sister's best friends. And we walk in, and we can see her bed, and the 3 of them go to the side while I stand at the corner. And I remember my sister immediately saying, guys, I just had a heart attack. And she just laughs. And then within 2 seconds, she just starts talking to her best friends about her favorite bands and the concert they're going to go to the next month. And this was absolutely just boggling to me because I had just spent the last 5 hours at the hospital, just worried sick. And then now I come in here and you're just laughing. It was really, really crazy. And then, after 5 minutes of her talking about music, a nurse comes in and says, we have to start running more tests. So we need you guys to clear out. So, the three of them leave. And I remember walking up to my sister and grabbing her hand. I just looked her in the eyes and I said, everything's going to be okay. I cried a little bit, I backed up and I left. So, eventually the nurses said that only 2 people could stay overnight, which of course again was my mom and then Catherine, which was cool because my dad said that we'd be back tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. when the waiting rooms opened back up. So we go home, and I remember taking off my pants and sinking into my sheets, and I call my friend Sarah to unload everything I just told you. And then 10 minutes into the conversation, the door to my room flies open, and I can see Eddie's silhouette. Her heart stopped. Get ready, your dad already left. So now I'm in a panic, gotta put on my pants again, and run into the hospital. My brother's calling our family, I'm calling her friends, we gotta stay updated. Eddie drops me and my brother off at the front of the hospital so we can get there first. I'm getting to the 4th floor and I'm expecting everyone to be in the waiting room because we were just there for like 4 hours. Instead, I see my uncles and aunts and cousins all standing in the hallway. And so I'm stopped and I'm confused. And eventually one of the uncles points to a waiting room. And he says, you and your brother need to go in. So we go in. And I walk in and there's a lot to take in all at once. I see 2 men on my left who I'd never seen before. And directly in front of me, I see my mom. Her face is pink and her eyes are wet. On her left is Catherine. She has a hand on both shoulders, trying to comfort my mom. My dad is on my mom's other side, holding her hand, running his hand back and forth on his leg. So my brother goes over, stands by Catherine, and I shut the door. And as I shut the door, one of the men begins to speak. There's a 0% chance she'll make it to morning. If she makes it, there will be a 0.005% chance her brain will function the same. He mutters off more statistics, and my dad finally asks, what about transplant options? And the man responds, Wesley Medical Center doesn't perform heart transplants. And if we did, her body is too unstable to move. We wouldn't be able to get her downstairs, let alone across the city. And for the first time in my life, I saw my dad begin to cry. Me being a dramatic 16-year-old, I open the door and I slam it, I push my family aside, and I find the first empty hallway I can. And I just sit. And all of a sudden, there's this rush of emotions and images and memories. I remember elementary school and middle school and chess tournaments and going to school together every morning, and I was supposed to buy her Story of the Year's new album for her birthday, and who's gonna sing Mr. Brightside with me? And what was the last thing I said to her? What was the last thing I said to my sister? The last living memory I have of my sister is when I held her hand, looked her in the eyes, and said, everything's gonna be okay. And that's why I don't believe that everything will be. Obviously, this is pretty heavy, and before I get into why this is so important to me, I do think it's important to say that it's been about 6 years since it happened, and I've come a long way. I have a great support group with friends and family who care about me, and fortunately, a lot of people I've met who are still willing to sing Mr. Brightside with me. So I don't believe everything will be okay, but it really wasn't until the last couple of years that I really started to develop this mentality. I mean, yeah, losing my sister played a large role in that, but I understand that bad things happen. And this mentality was a result of those bad things piling up. I mean, bad things happen to all of us. We've been hit in the face with soccer balls while we weren't looking. We failed tests that we stayed up till 3 a.m. studying for. We've been dumped when we thought everything was going great. Sarah Yoon rejected us freshman year of high school and sophomore year of high school and junior year of high school. Maybe that last one was just me, but the important thing here isn't the fact that bad things are happening. The important thing is our inability to cope with those events, and more importantly, our inability to help other people cope. You see, when you see someone you care about upset or hurt, you want to reassure, console, and comfort them, but you also don't want to inconvenience yourself. That's what makes saying everything's going to be okay so easy. So when you see person A and person B break up, your best friend gets diagnosed with cancer, or I lose a sister to myocarditis, no one wastes time to show you that everything's going to be okay. Now, no one can define what okay means or tell you when okay will get here, but they'll all repeat it enough until they think you believe it. But when you say everything's going to be okay, you're being lazy. You're offering emotional support that is both lackluster and fleeting. We can and should be saying so much more. But consider this. In 2014, suicide was the 10th leading cause of death in the US, with there being a suicide every less than 13 minutes, which means that roughly by the time I got on stage and started talking, until right about now, we lost another person. And I'm willing to make the claim that our attachment to saying everything's going to be okay has a lot to do with that. Because when we say everything's going to be okay, we're actively dismissing the issue, hoping that it'll solve itself. And this is really evident if we look at the stats for male suicide rates. In 2014, the suicide rates for every 100,000 people was 5.4 for women, but 20.3 for men. That's almost 4 times as high. And between 1981 and 2014, the rate was almost always 4 times as high. Why? We live in a society and a world where men have always been dominant power figures. So what's causing this discrepancy? Well, Samaritans actually conducted a study to determine why the rate was so high. And they concluded that, quote, there's an unbridgeable gap between the culturally authorized idea of hegemonic masculinity and the reality of everyday survival for men in crisis, end quote. So without the big words, what's being said here? Well, men's social roles aren't very flexible, and there's this mold that we're expected to meet. So whenever we fail to fit inside this mold and we fail to reach a certain level of masculinity, we face more emotional and psychological consequences. You see, by the time boys and girls reach 8 or 9 years old, there's already this pre-constructed idea that men are supposed to be these big, strong protectors. We're supposed to keep our emotions bottled up, and we're supposed to keep them hidden because they make us weak. So by the time we get sad and depressed, we aren't equipped to handle it because we just spent X amount of years not dealing with it and not talking about it. We need to stop promoting this idea that people shouldn't be open about their emotions. We need to stop equating emotions to weakness, and we need to begin to create a community where people aren't afraid to be vulnerable. When I lost my sister, my friends and family had no idea how to help me, which I don't blame them for. We weren't taught how to handle that. So every conversation I had with my friends and family was a series of, hey, how are you doing? I'm good. Hey, are you okay? I'm fine. Chin up. Everything's going to be okay. The lack of depth was laughable. And I remember sitting in class and sitting at home and constantly being engulfed in my thoughts. And the more I would think, the more upset I would get, the more depressed I would get. And I was angry all the time. But I remember seeing my dad cry and my mom cry, and I just thought, I have to be strong. And if I talk, then people are going to know that I'm falling apart, and people are going to think I'm weak, and I can't do that. So what could my friends and family have said to me? Well, according to Dr. Gene Siegel, we should be offering emotional support, be gentle and persistent, listen and not lecture. The National Institute of Mental Health offers similar advice, saying that we should offer support, talk and listen, and be persistent. Okay, all that sounds really easy. All we have to do is talk, listen, and let them know that we care. But it's become so easy for us to default to just saying, everything's going to be okay. Stop telling the people you care about that everything's going to be okay. Let them know that things will get better, even if they aren't the same. Let them know that things will be better, even if it'll take some time and it'll take a lot of effort, but they will be better. And I know I'm just a 22-year-old kid, and I'm probably unqualified in every way possible to give you advice on what you should or shouldn't say, but I think this is what I would say. Look, I'm just a 22-year-old kid that really likes Batman. I can't turn back time or explain why this happened. I can't help you eat or sleep, and I can't make the memories stop looking so vivid. I do, however, have some time to spare. I can come over and we can talk, or if that's too much, I'll sit silently. And I understand that might get boring, so I've got activities. We can watch 500 Days of Summer and Finding Nemo. Just no horror movies, because I'm not clenching my butt cheeks just because you're sad. We can do whatever you want. You can dye my hair, do my makeup, and paint my nails. I've got Smash Brothers and $20 to spend on snacks. If you're feeling stressed out, we can go work out. I'll even let you skip leg day. But we should probably go tomorrow because you just did my nails. I'll be here as long as you need me to be. or until like 10 p.m. because I got work at 7. But I'll be back tomorrow, I promise, and the day after that. I'll be here until you feel better. I promise. Thank you.